Good afternoon / evening, depending on where you are in the world. Delighted to be here. I'm going to talk about mobile in the moment of truth. How we at Streetbees turn basically millions of qualitative conversations that we have with consumers every month into actionable insight. And we do that using the power of AI. Those two jaunty exclamation marks there are sort of an invocation of British sarcasm, because we don't really think of ourselves as AI, and I think how the market sense has been evolving, but something slightly more evolved. But we will digress into that as we get into it. My name's Sean. I'm the VP of Product at Streetbees. Been in the analytics, machine learning space for a while, but relatively new, 6 months or so into the market research world. How I think about Streetbees, we think of it as a human intelligence platform. And a human intelligence platform is deliberately distinct from AI, right? And as this is an awesome market research conference, I'm new to this industry, I actually have done some market research on your behalf into the semantic meaning of AI as a tech trend, and particularly how it articulates in the semiotics of its appearance, if you will. And I'm a diligent person, so I did what every good market researcher does. And I'm going to give you two critical insights about AI and how I think Streetbees is different. Insight number one, AI is blue. All AI looks like this. Generally male, almost overwhelmingly male, or sort of cyborg, but definitely blue. Critical insight number two, AI is magic. How do I know AI is magic? Because it all looks like this. This is one I particularly love, because you have this clearly digital environment, but relying on a clockwork mechanical mechanism. Sort of a man in a Windsor knot in the suit and tie, but also possessing the powers to pass some sort of electrical current through a screen. And I think from the Streetbees perspective, we see AI as this, in this version, is something to almost be afraid of. It's this sort of powerful, omniscient force, and there's a lot of black box magic sort of hiding inside it that makes it seem out of reach and complicated, and something that you need very, very expensive consultants to come and help you with. We contrast that. We think we are a human intelligence platform, and I'm going to explain what this is. So we have an app, right? We have a massive community of bees. These bees we talk to them in their own words. I'm going to show you the app, talk about how we get our data. We then have a lot of machine learning. And what is machine learning in simple terms, product terms for me? We're very good at spotting patterns, very good at breaking down the stuff that comes in here, finding interesting patterns, clustering, mining, looking at the data from different ways. And then we deliver that up to our customers. We, of course, have a dashboard. Everyone has a dashboard. But we also do a lot of more detailed, deep analysis that can be surfaced here, can be surfaced in workshops, can be surfaced in a range of different outputs, depending on the specific problem. So a human intelligence platform. How we want to probably put the weight there is on the human. So I'm going to show you the app. This is our app. The app is, if you've used social media, I guess, anytime in the past 10 years, you'll understand this, right? It's a feed. We have a feed. We call these things here stories. And so what these are tasks, effectively, for the bees to talk to us about. So what are they snacking on? What is their routine around hand washing? How do they actually do it? If they're out for dinner, tell us about where they are, what they're doing. And these things can take a variety of different forms. So, it could be hair care. Like we operate in multiple categories. We have customers, from insurance all the way through to alcohol, beverage, people that make ice cream. Very, very diverse set of things, which makes this an interesting consumer offer. So let's take a story. And so this is one of, probably up to 500 different stories that we'll have live in the app for different segments. And the quality of our data gathering, how I think it's differentiated, is there's a few things. In this case, we're asking the user to talk to us about their hair care routine. It's going to be a short thing. So it's a 5-minute thing. But we're also saying, hey, because this is on the phone and you'll sort of have your phone in your hand and you're doing this, we'd like some photos, right? We want to see what you're doing. So we want to see the straighteners, the hairdryer, I guess, and the cosmetics. So we want to get the color behind this. And so we do that. And what we then have is an experience for the user that, yes, we do occasional categorical questions. So here, what's my hair type, right? So it's straight. But really, I would say 80 to 90% of how we are interacting with the user is we talk to them, we ask them questions. Where do you buy your hair care products? They give us back, they text us back in their own words. And so what we tend to find is this gives us a very unfiltered, instinctive view of how a consumer is choosing to make decisions. There is no recall required. There's no post-rationalization, where I'm trying to justify why I made the decision. I'm doing it now. I'm doing my hair routine. So I'm going to give you the color and descriptive, and I'm going to tell you the things that are important to me about that, how I'm making the decision in that moment. So the user goes through that. They complete the questions, they'll upload the photo, things like that. We pay them. And we pay them, we're very uncomplicated about paying people. We try and do it super fast, and we do it instantly. So you don't need to accumulate lots of tokens or stars or various other mechanics that you would maybe see in a traditional panel setup. This tends to mean that we attract a much more diverse set of consumers who want to come and use our app. So I've done that, and that sort of is the core, I think, of our stories experience. But what we're also mindful of is how do we reach people doing things that traditional market research has just struggled to do at any meaningful scale? And that is basically times when the last thing you want to do is complete a survey or a story or talk to a market researcher. And for that, we have, this is something that is very new, a set of features called Snap Now, Chat Later. And the proposition is very simple. It's like, take the photo of the thing, come back and talk to us within a certain time frame, right? And the time frame does tend to vary. So let's take an example where traditional market research has struggled, right? The concept of drinking. So here, you're out in a bar, okay? And you're with your friends, and you don't want to do a detailed, thoughtful analysis of why you're doing certain things. So our proposition to capture these moments is just like, hey, you're out, give us the photo of the thing you're drinking. And so you get the camera, you take the photo, you use the photo. We ask generally one other question. What is it? If it's not immediately obvious, and obviously with drinks, that isn't obviously always the case. So here, this user's having the left blonde ale. We then say, hey, it's okay. We understand you're out. You're drinking. You don't want to be doing surveys. Come back soon. What we then do is then have this basically ready to go for alcohol. We're testing out these different thresholds. We think 12 hours is the sweet spot the next morning where we can send a notification. And then we get the color on, hey, what was that like? Why were you out? Why did you choose that left beer? And you have the photo, and we tend to see that this sort of soft recall, this immediacy, because you've got this aide memoire and the association, actually tends to produce much better, more interesting results than asking people after the fact, still within the short-term memory. And that means that we can get people when they're in the queue having a coffee, or they're having a fast occasion, so grabbing lunch, or stepping out from the office, which allows us to get, I think, a different sort of quality to our data. So why has no one done this before? All right, it's nice. We have a nice app. We have these stories. We do, getting on for 2 million of these every single month. The bit that was hard, right, and the bit where the magic happens is you now have 2 million basically text chats with users and hundreds of thousands of photos. And so you need something that's going to figure out what's going on. And that can't be just an army of humans making that work. So we have a machine. The machine here, let's give it an example. So this would be usually happening in our back end. So let's say I had a coffee because I was tired. Now I am in a better mood, going for a run because I'm feeling virtuous. And we're going to select different models that are designed to sort of basically pull these strings apart. And what we did when we were building Streetbees was we had to find none of these things exist off the shelf, right? There is no Amazon service that will sort of detect the mood of a consumer within the context of being in a bar, right? So the training data for all of this and how we're putting together is all of our proprietary smarts. So I pressed annotate there. A couple of seconds, the blue electricity has gone from my fingers. It's gone into this sentence and it's pulled apart. And so here we can see the sort of thing that we're doing. So we break apart that this user was having coffee as an activity. We break apart that they're going for a run, another activity. We detected mood, tired, right? And important to say, this is not based on just a glossary of 50 words that describe mood. This is all running on GPT-3. It's pulling out the semantic meaning of tired and understanding that this is representing the mood. It's picked up there's an association of better, so mood improving relating to this moment. It's identified a motivation. User was tired, I was tired, and coffee is the product. And if I put Nescafe or something else in there, we have models that will pull out the brand and extract that as well. So this engine basically is running over all of these text strings, and it's developing a tagging framework for us to orchestrate and make sense of this data. Okay. So what does that mean? So we've effectively tagged everything. We've put it all together. And what we're doing here is, and what we believe why this approach to this in-moment sort of research versus a recall search is, we can start to decode decision-making. So we're talking to the user about the mood at the time. We're talking to them about the context. Where are they? What's the time? We're talking about why did they choose this particular product? What was in the consideration set? Why didn't they choose these other things? Because we're trying to get close to the decision, right? Why did you select the Left Blonde beer at this moment when you could have had a whole bar full of drinks? And what we do when we do our analysis on that is that we see that many consumers will talk about, aspirationally, I will want to eat veggies today, steak night, but what tends to happen is that contextual moment of being at home and I'm tired, or, my friends came over, and that just means the context of my decision choice is now going to be different. And so we're actually going to sit around and we're going to eat Ben and Jerry's out of the tub, right? It's the authenticity of this that we're trying to uncover. And once you start to do that, and you have basically this graph, this knowledge graph of all of these tags, right? So let's take a concept like sustainability. Like, what does sustainability actually mean? Well, what it means is a whole load of different things, right? And these things are actually contingent on, right, the product type, right? So there is an association with pollution and laundry that's stronger than other categories. So you can start to break apart the language of what the inner meaning of what the consumer is trying to express, and you start to see the patterns that in the absence of the machine just would not be visible, right? You couldn't see this because it exists on a dimensionality that's just too complicated. What this tends to lead to is that we see big differences between claim behavior and the actual in the moment how people behave, right? So this is just one example. So you talk to people like sustainability, right? Like, and you will get strong consensus from people saying that this is indeed an important part of how they choose to purchase products, right? And there's a variety of reasons for that. People want to feel that they are aligned to climate and other variables, and that we deem to be very positive things. We then compare that against, okay, like, but was it influencing at the moment you were selecting the laundry product? How much was it going into the consideration set for the why, right? Unprompted. And it's very, very, very small, right? And so I think that the quality of what we're trying to do is like, okay, let's get inside the heads of people here at this end of the distribution, because that's the moment of truth. And knowing this is definitely interesting, useful, and it might be informing that, but this is the bit that's driving the decision. So what we did, got all this data coming in through the app, have an engine to sort of tag it all up and do things with it that is machine learning. It's, dare I say, AI. We then need to take that and give it to our customers in a variety of forms so they can do something useful with it. What that looks like. So this is our dashboard product. It's called Streetbees Go. There's a ton of stuff in this product, from high-level macro things that we track that are relevant to our customers. So at the moment, we've been focused a lot on the recovery, right? So the post-COVID, how are people's attitudes to health, socializing, security shopping, how are they changing, right? And so we do interesting stuff comparing how consumers are in China versus in the US, right? Much lower sort of indices. But I'm going to talk to you sort of probably about one, two things that sort of bring to life, I think, the quality of the data that we're doing. So we take all of those 2 million conversations, we cluster them all together. So let's say I'm in the United States and I know I'm a pizza manufacturer, so which is baked items. What we give to the user is, this is the market map of food consumption, right? This is where you take all of those different variables. If you're familiar with demand spaces, these are effectively demand spaces, the map of where consumption's happening, right? So you don't see pizza in healthy mornings and family health goals, right? You see it in these sort of spaces that we define as treat and reward. You see it in bonding. You see it in fast occasions. And what we basically can do is rather than the traditional cycle of you need to do 12 weeks field work, you need to do, spend a lot of money on bespoke analysis, we have demand spaces out of the box. Next day, you can go use ours. They can obviously be augmented for how you particularly see your category. And what we give you is like, what is this thing that's sort of invisible? This moment where these choices, the consumer is making these things. And so if I'm someone that makes pizza, right, and family gatherings is basically 12% of consumption, this starts to become interesting, because I sort of care about some trends. I care about when is this happening, right? So it's this is family, so it skews a little bit early. We get some bleed lunch into dinner. It tends to be Fridays, like over indexes quite a lot on Friday, Saturday. What people are having. So we're seeing like Domino's, different pizza things bleeding through. And then why, right? So why are people choosing the products here? Why do they choose, bread or dairy, these different categories? And this is basically us aggregating all of those 2 million conversations to pass out the reasons. So, and you can do that across, category. We do it across brands. And then we give you the rich verbatims that the consumer are basically explaining in real time why they chose to do these things. So let's stick with our pizza example. Let's say I'm Domino's, or I'm interested in Domino's. So here we have 180 moments of people consuming Domino's, and basically the underlying sense of what they're doing. And so I'm eyeballing here, and it's like, okay, this is sort of interesting. I've not seen people do this with pizza in the US and UK, so I might want to dig in to understand. Okay, what's happening here? And this is sort of interesting. What do we have? This is a Domino's Kit Kat chocolate pizza. This is not a product category that I was aware of, but is obviously tapping into something interesting for the consumer. So we have this raw fidelity, talking to the consumer, understanding it, the authenticity of seeing the product in context, which generally is very different from how perhaps the brand manager, the perception might be, and we can then take it up. We can look at how this category overall is performing. How is share distributed? Why are people consuming it? What else was in the consideration set? Who are they with? Reasons for choice. So let's stick with pizza. We have Domino's here. Let's do a comparison. Domino's versus Pizza Hut. So we're looking down these two columns. Black is basically in line with the category, right? So Domino's is in this bake savory category. Green would be areas where it's over-indexing. Red would be under-indexing relative to the category. So you start to understand the drivers of difference, right? So here, eyeballing down. So this is kind of interesting, right? So we see that the Domino's has this very strong association. People like literally describing it as a craving. 29%. People crave Domino's in a way that they don't crave Pizza Hut. These are all sort of a parity. We see slight difference here, right? So not only do people that Domino's crave it, they also, the children like it, right? So Domino's seems to have unlocked some magic there. And here we see one where the next dimension where Pizza Hut is sort of outperforming, which is cheap, affordable. So Domino's more of a premium proposition perhaps than Pizza Hut. And so what we do with this is we would then take this analysis in multiple directions. So we could jump into this analytics tab over here, and we could decompose, okay, what does this craving mean? Who are these people? How are the people doing, like eating the Domino's, different to the people eating the Pizza Hut? What does that mean for marketing communications? What does it mean for my brand communication strategy? And they're the sorts of problems that we help our clients to sort of action once we've got this data foundation that's trying to unpick what's going on in the minds of the consumer. I'll give you another example. This is something that we did in oral health. And so, one of the things that we do a lot is helping companies understand how to position products, right? Identify the space, but also okay, so if you want to go after that space, what goes on the box, right? To help the consumer, to match with these moments. And so, example here, it was oral health, right? Where we took our machine learning technology and basically we broke apart, right? What are the aesthetical dimensions of oral health of consumers in their own words, right? And this is not us prompting with a load of rate these things, rank these things. This is emerging from the stuff that the bees are typing into the app. And we're creating, it's basically, okay, so when people think that the brightness is about teeth, what does that really mean, right? And it's things like natural and healthy, and these sorts of things are basically the objectives, goals of the user. When consumers talk about freshness, right? How do you break apart freshness? And so what the machine is doing here is mining and categorizing and saying, okay, so that's really it's about a clean mouth, right? Or the dominant factor, it's about this concept of a fresh breath. So it's an anxiety that my breath does not feel fresh, right? And so obviously this then can go into an MPD pipeline, can go to a marketing strategy. You can brief your creative agencies on it. We sort of work across a whole load of those problems. The specific sort of, I guess, the superset of things that we really like. And if you have problems in these areas, we'd be very happy to talk to you about. It's like audiences who are in these space, right? So who are the people that crave Domino's rather than Pizza Hut? Why? Why is that going on? Increasing consumption. right? So we're very good at looking at, take a category like chocolate, like where is chocolate winning and where is it losing? And what we see there, for example, is a lot of the time chocolate loses out to fruit, particularly to apples, actually, particularly in Europe. And so a lot of that is about the anxiety of calories of chocolate and perceived healthiness. And so then we work with clients to understand, well, what does healthy actually mean in the minds of the consumers? Because often it's very different from how a manufacturer will consider health, and the consumer bar for health can be different to how a manufacturer will potentially think about brand performance, right? So how, like, working with the Pizza Hut or the Domino's to accentuate or decompose what those drivers are. And then we look at channel, right? So where are people buying these things? Is there availability that comes through? And so these are the sorts of problems we love. We love anything where we're doing interesting things with decomposing language. Just don't call it AI. And if this is sort of resonating, has interest to you, we're currently running growth clinics, right, where we will identify some trends in your sectors. We'll talk about some potential opportunities for your brand, tell you a bit about us in more detail. And you can set that up. Just reach out to me, LinkedIn, or get in touch on via our website. We'd be happy to take it. That's a whistle-stop tour of Streetbees. I hope it was useful. Happy to take any questions in the chat. So it looks like we do have a few questions. Just gonna look at that. Okay, number one. How representative is your sample of bees? So our bees are a really diverse group. We were speaking to one the other last Friday, actually. One was a lawyer who really valued this as a mechanism to sort of have a productive time. How she contrasted it, differentiating from like social media. We had a radiographer who tended to do this in moments, in between doing radiographer stuff. So they really tend to be quite different. We basically work to a set of representation. We tend to build that with our customers. So it would always include age and gender to ensure that we're weighting, we're doing all the good stuff that is important to get a solid sample. But we've also done, we've looked at income cuts, we've looked at various other things that sort of the nuance of that can be developed on the category. And we're very experienced in, we're running something at the moment in Nigeria, looking at the beer category, where it's a certain number of people drinking in bars versus at home, and these characteristics. And so generally we can put that stuff together to ensure that we can hit the representation goals that you're trying to achieve. Do brands still need insight teams if they take this approach to their customer data gathering? Yes, of course. So how we would see that, I suppose, would be we work a lot of insight teams, and I think that the hard part of analysis is not the analysis per se. It's like, how do you get it embedded in the organization, right? And the way you get it embedded, I think, is you need powerful insight teams armed with very strong stories and the right tools so that they can point the business to. So we've worked with customers where, effectively our dashboard is sitting inside the core intranet of the marketing organization. And if the teams want to know about the space, like, they don't have to go talk to the insight person and say, hey, where's the deck we did 2 years ago about our demand space? It's like all here. It's all digitized. And what that does, I think, it frees up the insights teams to work with us on the getting to the deeper why, right? So, our Domino's example, things like that. So we definitely see insights teams as strong partners in bringing this data into the organization. What do you think are the biggest barriers to this approach to customer intelligence being adopted? I think the biggest barriers are, I think it's getting comfortably uncomfortable with like the rawness of the consumer, which often tends to, if there's some holy cows in the organization, can end up being quite disruptive, right? And I think there's a warm comfort blanket in traditional research, and where it doesn't tend to ever surprise you too much, right? You sort of get back what you're sort of expecting to get back. So everyone sort of generally feels good about that. Like, but it's also sort of like, but did we learn anything new or interesting? Was it particularly customer centric, getting a load of people to post rationalize why they've done certain things? And right. And so I think the thing we find is like, oh, hey, this is really interesting, but it's a bit uncomfortable. And so what we work with is like getting people comfortable with that, right? Understanding that moment of truth is like, that is where it's happening, and it's messy, and it's can be chaotic, and it can give you a different lens on how you understand your customers, and you sort of need to embrace that. I'd say that's probably the challenge.